Alrighty, everybody. I am so excited. I am having my friend Michelle Shimmin on the show today. Michelle, thanks so much for being on Hey Docs with us.
Thanks for having me, Jill. I've really been looking forward to this.
Yes, me too. Me too. It's always a special treat when I get to have a friend of mine and co-consultant on the show. If you're driving, you might want to pull over and get out your notepad because Michelle is going to give us some pearls of wisdom, and it's definitely going to be a show that you're going to want to listen to the end.
We're going to
So,
get raw.
So, Michelle, one of the ways that I really like to start out Hey Docs is having my guests just give us a little bit of history. I know that most people probably know who you are, but in the event that we've got somebody that's listening that doesn't know who you are, doesn't know your journey into consulting, would you mind starting us off with a little background there?
Sure. Thanks so much. Yeah. So I actually am just hitting 33 years in orthodontics this month. And it feels like orthodontics has always been a part of my journey, even though as I was going into college, I
Mhm.
was looking to be a psychologist. That was my dream and my thought process as a grown up. I do remember when I was in braces at 12 years old, I loved going into my orthodontist and I would lay in the chair and look up at the assistants. And I remember just consistently asking them, how do I do what you're doing? And so that's really what
Yeah.
started it. I think I probably wore my orthodontist down and he hired me for after school and summer help. And it's just been such a rewarding journey. And I did end up getting married and having a family and staying in orthodontics because it was really such a career to have that enhanced my family life, which was important to me. So I have found tremendous success in merging psychology and the industry of orthodontics in any aspect of our coaching and leadership in orthodontics. So that really is my journey. I've worked in some phenomenal practices as a team member, and for the last 11 years have had the privilege of being able to coach and guide practices all over the world as a consultant.
We really are in a great space where not only do we get to impact a lot of people's lives, but also just get to see so many practices across the United States. And I know your years as a consultant, my years as a consultant, it's a really fun place to be for sure. Thank you for doing that. And I know there are a lot of offices that have been blessed by having you and your team in their practices. So, you and I both know that what we do isn't necessarily an easy job. And there really can be a lot of different personalities, whether we're training with team members, working with doctors, even training with team members to work with their clients who are coming into their office. And I want you to talk about how you've been able to bring that into your consulting style and what that looks like, especially in the landscape now when we're looking at offices and team members and patients that are coming into the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. The business of orthodontics is not rocket science. You and I both get to live in that space and really understand what it takes to run an orthodontic practice. But I'll tell you, the skill set and the ability to be an effective leader and to know how to communicate is part of the recipe, oftentimes, that is missing with running a practice. And 80% of those that fail at work do so because they cannot relate or communicate well with others. Now, I train a lot on that because that statistic doesn't say that 80% of those fail at work because they don't know how to do their job. It truly is a place of disconnect and misperception and a lack of effective leadership. So there's a tremendous psychology in the ability to be able to influence those around you. So if we're talking about leadership and management, to be able to influence our team members, to be vested in their role, to
Mhm.
be vested in their own professional growth and development as well, to really inspire and motivate our teammates around us to grow and be the best that they can be. It takes a tremendous psychology. I do a lot of coaching and training for modalities or products in our industry as well, because again, the psychology it takes to influence in what somebody thinks and feels about something,
Right. Yeah.
you know? So that's really where my team and I thrive. I feel that this is the foundation of our approach to our partnerships with our clients as well. And so when we can teach that skill set in any role in the practice, I often say that it doesn't matter what position you have in the practice, we all have the ability to be leaders.
Yes.
I think you just put something out there as well, and it just to speak in my language that leaders lead by example. And I add to that and say leaders serve others outside of their positions. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what position you have in the practice, that applies to all of us.
Yep. Yep.
That's,
So agree.
yeah, we see this so much right now in the breakdown of a successful orthodontic practice.
Mhm.
And this is part of the recipe that will take that practice and elevate it to that next level of success.
Yeah. And on that, that kind of leads me into my next question. And I'm definitely going to want you to break down successes of practices. But I know you and I both get asked this a lot, and you're alluding to it already. But we have clients that'll call and, hey, Jill, you're a consultant. What do you specialize in? Or what's your specialty? And I think that when you look at businesses and when I look at businesses, I think everybody needs to understand that most consultants out there, especially what we do, you have to understand everything that's going in every area of a practice in
Yeah.
order to really be able to hit the needs of what those practices are looking for. And I know that one area that you focus a lot in is that business analysis part of a business. And I love that you do that because you've got the psychology part that you bring into your consulting style, but you also really take a look at what are making businesses successful when they're at that next level and maybe where are some of the things that they could be falling through at. And so I'm wondering if you could start us off with some of the factors that you see if you are going into a practice and docs and listeners that are listening, if Michelle is coming in, what I want you to do is tell us maybe 3 to 4 things that you would say, hey, this tells me I've got a really healthy practice that I'm working with. And then I'm going to throw, so this is a long one, Michelle, sorry. And I'll keep us on track as much as I can. But then I want you to give me some ideas about maybe some concerns, 3 to 4 areas where if you were to say, these are some things that practices need to look at that would be a concern. If we could talk to those 2 things, because I think you've got such good insight. And when you think about that, I know a lot of times it's not just numbers that we're talking about.
Right.
It could be leadership, it could be team culture. So I don't know what you're going to say, but I'm excited for you to break this down. So let's start with positives first.
Yeah, if I'm understanding your question correctly, what do we see? What do we look for in a healthy practice? And
Yeah.
it's going to elevate a practice to that next level. So, one, of course, data doesn't lie. So, what we want to always be able to do is to remove feelings or perceptions and strictly look at the data and the metrics. That's one area
That.
we absolutely can't overlook.
Mhm.
The other part of it is we want to look at their internal systems and processes in regards to what is the clear channels they have with every position in their practice. Do they have the proper channels of communication and the proper channels of accountability?
Mhm.
Because when we say remove feelings and perception, you have a different perception than I have, and that is going to interfere and affect our performance
Mhm.
or what's expected out of our performance. So, this is when I coach on review processes and team development processes. I don't want to simply sit across the table from a team member and provide feedback to them. I want it to be an interactive experience where they are identifying areas where they have room for improvement, where they are bringing to the table areas to celebrate where they grew from last year to this year and where they've identified a commitment to what they're going to grow in the upcoming year. And then it's feedback this way. It's a dialogue and an interaction. We're providing clarity in those channels of what's expected. Is this something I feel I can do well? Do I have the tools to be successful at this? And then can the practice deliver what it is that I need to be successful at it? And we come up with agreements. When we can really be clear, remove feelings, remove perception, meaning, I feel like I do my job really well. I know you hear this every day, as do I. I feel like we get close all the cases we're able to close.
Yeah.
I feel like our conversion rate is really good, or I feel like we have a handle on our financials and our delinquencies. When you do dive into the truth and the accuracy of the reporting, there's often, most times, great opportunities to be able to improve in those areas. But we can't get anywhere unless we have the clear channels of each of our team members. And that includes clear channels of communication and accountability. So that's the one area that I look at. I set up an org chart within a practice, and that's what provides clarity to everybody. If I'm working with a doc and they're wanting to implement a stronger leader role with somebody in the practice, the first thing I'm going to do is put parameters with them. What does this look like to you? Great. Let's identify the best person for that role and ensure that they want it and can do it well. And then we're going to announce it to the team. This is something we're going to put out there. So we're setting our team members up and this leadership role successful.
That's great. And I think that self-realization is
Yes.
probably some of the hardest things for doctors and office managers to do sometimes, is to be able to ask for help.
To build off of that as well, when you say that self realization and to not have the fear to put something out there and ask for either assistance or support with it, I also hope to instill in team members to put creativity and initiative in place, to not be afraid to step out and say to the doctor, hey, I wrote this email up to respond. How do you feel about this? And don't be afraid to put themselves out there. This is how doctors and office managers and team leads can inspire their team around them. We
Yeah.
want to create an environment where our team members soar with their talents.
Hmm.
That minimizes the need for micromanagement. It also allows everybody in the practice to feel like they can successfully accomplish their role and not have to put their fingers in every pot and feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
discouraged.
Yeah, that's great. Any other suggestions for key health factors if you were looking at a practice and saying, "Hey, you guys are really doing it right"? Any other things that you would be looking at or identifying in practices?
Yes, this is actually going to speak more to the modalities and technology that we have available to us. As we've spoken significantly over the last 3 years, our industry has changed and it's growing and it's not going backwards. So those practices that used those digital solutions and technology to get us through those difficult years that we've just come out of, if you decide that you're going to go back to how you used to do it, I want you to recognize that your patients, the consumer, is not going backwards in what they expect. So,
Right.
for a practice to recognize and understand through their value, core values, how they want to serve their patients, how they want to live in their space as well, but to be able to always be growing and adapting. I do want to recognize where their strengths are and where their desires in treatment solutions are, but marry that with what your patients and what the consumer is looking for. And that's really what's important in the practices that are elevating to that next level and continue to grow. Because even in
Yeah, sure.
days, I know Chris Benson was with you and talking about the concerns and the scares of what's happening in the economy. But I'm here to tell you there are so many practices thriving and growing right now.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is not a place to sit back and live in fear. This is a place to
For sure.
reevaluate your areas of focus and to really plow forward with that. And
Yeah.
that's where we see a lot of growth happening right now,
Yeah.
despite.
And I love what you're saying there. And I 100% agree with you on this, which is me doing startups. But definitely, we don't want to be living in fear with practices when we're getting ready to move forward with a new practice. There, you really have got to take your practice and run with your practice. And if something isn't working, pivot. Get some help, change things up, do whatever you need to do to keep your practice moving forward. And I think be self-aware enough
Yeah.
to recognize if something isn't going the way you want, to be able to recognize that and take the steps to get your practice going in the right direction. But living in fear, ugh, the sky's falling, that is not the way anybody wants to live their life for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the second part of that question. And if we have doctors that are out there and they're like, okay, Michelle, you talked to us a little bit about what it means to have a successful practice and maybe some of the systems that you were just talking about that we should have in place. And but I don't know that I'm that doctor, but I don't know that I know how to identify if I have a problem in my practice. And I know that you and I probably both identify on the same things, but I'm curious to know what you would tell a doctor if they were coming to you or if you were doing an audit of their system or of their, and I'm not saying system just with finances. I'm saying just an audit of them. What are some things that you would be identifying on or telling teams or doctors, hey, these are things that you might be on the lookout for?
Oh gosh. I'll tell you what, I've never been in a practice, hundreds of practices. I've never been in one where there hasn't been anything not to focus on, not to grow and improve
So,
on.
so if you think, let's just sit on that one. If you think you have nothing to
It's
improve upon, that may be your first clue.
really, it's pretty late in the game when doctors are feeling such pain that they say it's time to reach out. That's pretty late in the game. There is a lot under the surface that needs to be unpacked, recalibrated, reset. And I commend those doctors that do say, hey, we need coaches, we need advisors. I often say sports teams are run better than most orthodontic practices because they have those coaches. They have conditioning coaches, they have strategic coaches, playbook coaches. What practices typically are going to start to feel and experience when a breakdown is happening or is occurring or starting to happen is really a decline in the culture. You're going to start to see an increase in crosstalk or gossip among team members. You're
Yeah.
going to start to see team members come in with a less than enthusiastic attitude. We should show up at our absolute best, ready to perform for our patients and for their overall experience. And if you have anything less than that out of your team members, there's something happening at the core. And you also are probably, when this is happening, experiencing a turnover that's going on. Maybe team members starting to show up late or call out sick. It's just a lack of investment. And really, where we want to circle back to, I highly recommend revisiting your core values as a practice. And then we have a full team meeting to really, one, ensure that our team members understand what those core values are and
So
why
agree.
we're doing what we're doing.
Yes, so
You
agree.
have to circle back to the why on everything. You can't get somebody's buy into something, including your practice,
Mm.
if they don't understand the why and how they are a part of the recipe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that you have to back the train up. Can't just continue to plow forward or all your team members are going to fall off the train.
Yeah.
And that's really where we look to recalibrate and reset. It's okay to reset.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I always think of the Friends episode where they're moving the couch up the stairs and, and I think that's exactly what it is. We have to be okay. And I think especially as leaders within our own business, it is okay for us to call an audible or to call a timeout and be like, you know what? We need to reset. And I'm even going to speak to what you were just saying with your values or whatnot. There are times where your values, your culture could shift and change as you mature as business owners. And I
Right?
see this so much because I get to start with so many younger doctors and watch them mature. And I know you get a lot of doctors that are in that real midlife of their practice and really thriving and growing. And I would bet, I'm sure you're going to echo this, if you were to ask them, are all of these things the exact same as they were when you first started? I bet that they've changed a bit. And
Yep.
so I think it's good that you're pointing this out because sometimes, like you were saying, I think so many times we've had a change of team members.
Yeah.
We had a lot of that after COVID, and all of that instant institutional knowledge is gone, and we've got these team members that, well, my old team used to know all this stuff, but the new team doesn't. And it just feels things are just bouncing off of each other, not working well. So I love that you said that because I think that's super important. I do have a question for you, and I'm going to take us down a sidetrack for just a minute, but I know that you work with a lot of high level doctors, and I think that there are even times where doctors have to do a little self evaluation on where they're going. And I think it's easy for burnout sometimes, and it's easy to just get in the motion of doing the motion of running the business.
Yep.
Um, can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think that could also be an obstacle with with docs and even our office managers sometimes where they just get so caught in the cycle of doing the work that they lose their joy. And do you see that as where that can start to show up in other areas and practices?
Absolutely. I think that burnout is significant, especially with the weight that practitioners have to carry as business owners right now, nowadays. We don't devalue or underestimate that by any means. But what challenge I want to put out there is what I typically see is the younger docs that are starting and opening, there's such an enthusiasm and such a hunger and such a drive that really has gotten them to the point they're at right now. As they get settled in their practice and the practice is doing okay, good enough. Maybe they have these goals, they want to do better, but we're doing good enough. And we're now building our family and establishing our life, and our kids are starting to grow up and take more out of us.
Yeah.
That I find the highest lack of enthusiasm in the business development side of things. So I really would encourage that it is a make or break in the healthier practice. And it actually is very attainable. So if you don't want, or if you're not good at the bandwidth of strong leadership and guidance within your practice, bring somebody on that has that skill set
Yes.
for
Yes.
them to be that extension of you. That is okay to do. Now, on the a reverse side of that, make sure it's the right person. Don't just hire somebody to have that title because that could be more detrimental, but ensure it's the right person and that you have coaches alongside you to really develop that role. But this is what will take a lot off of your plate to put your energies anywhere else that you might want them. Also, to always revisit what those values are and what those goals are with your practice and what you want, because you mentioned that it does change. It changes significantly from the time of opening a practice to being 10 years in or 15 years in. And it's going to change again in the next decade after that. And that's all great. It's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if you just let it pass you by.
Right.
You're not
Right.
strategic in driving in the direction of your business.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely echo what you're saying. I think it's okay. We can yell pivot as many times as we need to, and that is all right. That's our prerogative as business owners and as business leaders. Michelle, I'm curious. You and I, again, we're in this industry. I know you speak for a lot of products and are involved in a lot of different things within our industry. I'm curious to know where you think things are going in our industry, what doctors and teams should be on the lookout for as they're preparing for the future. And I love what you said. The past, well, you didn't say this exactly like this, but basically, we can't live our life in the past in the way we did things in the past. And I always say we can't live in the rearview mirror. And I think so many people, 5 years ago, my practice was great. 5 years ago, I had the best team. 5 years ago, patients didn't find me on the internet. They do now, and they aren't great now, and you need to help yourself. So let's move forward.
And
So let's talk a little bit about what are you seeing? So if you are, again, you're helping, you go in, you work with a lot of the bigger practices. If you were helping them see the vision of where things are going, tell me some things that you feel like are going to be really key and important for the future of orthodontic practices and maybe even the landscape of our practices, in the next, 5 to 10 years or so. If you could have your crystal ball and be like, Jill, this is what I'm thinking is coming our way or things we need to be aware of or tuned into.
Yeah. And so what comes to my mind is personalization. And this is connected with our form of communication with our patients. It's connected with what solutions they need. It's connected to the modality
Mhm.
that we're going to use for them. Consumers are looking for that connection to where they've been heard or where their interpretation and feeling is that they've been heard.
Mhm.
I'm going to back up a little bit. When it doesn't work in a practice, so our digital solutions in regards to patient communication and text messaging, when that doesn't work, it's because the team does not buy into it. They don't believe in the process. And the message we get back is our patients don't, they get too many text messages and they don't reply. It's because they're ineffective text messages. Yes,
Right.
you probably are sending 3 or 4 appointment reminders. That's too much. Nobody wants that. But they do want to be able to say, Michelle, Dr. Orthodontist is looking forward to seeing you tomorrow at 10. Personalize it, direct and to the point. Don't simply send 4 or 5 of the same generic messages.
Yes.
Say
Yeah.
this to treatment coordinators in their pending follow up process. You might have a completely automated system. That's great, but customize it. Make it personal, and it doesn't mean you have to manually do it, but how you set up your platforms and how you set up your templates, the patient needs to feel that it's personalized and specific to them.
Yeah.
That's where that
Great.
connection. And we see this with our treatment modalities as well. We see this now in not only our aligner treatment that we have had now to be able to do for years, but in our bracket solutions as well. Fully customized for you. This is where we get the faster result, the best result in the shortest amount of time. It's the most convenient for you because we see less breakage. There's just the solutions that are absolutely going in that direction. If I were to summarize it quickly with that, it would be to use technology. That is not going away, and consumers need that and want that, but you have to personalize it and you
Right.
have to make them feel that it's about them and it's not about a blanket text message. And same with their treatment solutions that we're providing to them as well. It is also the same when they walk into your practice. We would put a board up. Welcome to all of our new patients that get started with treatment today. Customize that even further to the chair they're at and having your scheduling coordinators team, your patient care coordinators stand up and engage the patient.
Yeah.
'Cause
What a concept.
and to this day, I don't even understand why we're still seeing go ahead and check in, go ahead and sign in.
Yeah.
This is a personal relationship that we have a significant amount of time with our patients. When you can make that connection, you're able to elevate the success of your practice. When you're able to engage every one of your team members to make that connection, the sky's the limit. And that's where you get the practices that are thriving.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. What do you think about the future of what our employees look like in the practice? What do you think there?
This just seems like a no-brainer because you and I talk about this all the time and we live in this space, but we have to reimagine what our availability is for our team members. We have the ability to have team members that are virtual team members that maybe
Mhm.
are hybrid in the office,
Yes.
outside of the office. When you do that, there is a channel of communication and engagement that we want to facilitate. So they are still the employee or the team member feels a part of the team still. We have to empower them to our patients. There's so many opportunities when you can creatively look for those solutions. Don't ever lose a remarkable team member. Don't ever. There's so many creative
Yeah.
solutions that we can
Yes.
look for. And to circle back to what the new employee and team member is not only looking for, but intrinsically needing is a growth opportunity pathway.
Yeah.
They don't want to simply just clock in and clock out. And if we give them a job like that, this is your job, and we don't have any forecasted or growth opportunity pathways for them, we're not going to attract and retain top talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I think
is
yeah, I could not agree with you more, and I've been saying that and saying that just like you have too, that it is important to make sure that we are providing an opportunity for careers in our industry and not just jobs. Nobody wants to just have a job. Everybody wants to have a career. And there are so many ways that we can pour into our team members. You may be like, Jill, where did they go? If they're really great at being a communications coordinator, I don't have room for them to be a TC. Doggone it, they don't need to be a TC. Let them be a really great communicator, communications coordinator, or patient coordinator. I feel we're so sometimes in the past about everybody like there's this hierarchy of who's better in our practice. And really, I think what we need to be doing is identifying how do we get the best people in the best places? And then how do we build them up? Take them to continuing ed, send them to give them opportunities to grow within their position. If they want to move somewhere else, great. But don't assume that just because they're a great TC that now they need to be your office manager, because they may be a really great TC, they may not be a really great office manager. So I know I get a little passionate about this, and you and I both get passionate when we get talking. But I love what you're saying there, and just could not agree with you more on that.
Right now, unfortunately, I've seen some phenomenal team members choose to go elsewhere because they're also not compensated appropriately. They're
Mhm.
not compensated fairly. It is expensive for doctors and practices to lose quality team members. It
Yeah.
is more beneficial to compensate them properly, give them goals, give them something to work towards and to earn,
Yeah.
than it is to just simply
Yeah.
look for a cheaper solution
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that in the long run ends up to be extremely expensive to
Yeah.
practice. So
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm just gonna say this, docs. I want you to hear this from me. We are not practicing in the past anymore. Again, we are not in the rear view mirror where we can pick up top talent for low dollars. That's not happening. Let's have systems in place that help team members you'd be compensated as they grow within your practice. Let's make sure that we again, if somebody were going to have a career in your practice, what does a career salary look like? What does that look like? And sometimes that's even changing the way we look at our bottom line too a little bit. And I know that's a tough pill to hear and that's a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes that's what we have to do to get that exceptional team because an exceptional team makes you have an exceptional practice.
absolutely, Jill, but the doctors only benefit from this. It
Yes.
makes life so
Yes.
much easier. It makes your practice so much more valuable. And Jill, it's important that I say this, but you and I are not coming at this topic of conversation as an employee. We are coming at this topic of conversation as business owners and as business analysts that
Yeah.
understand how to assess the overhead challenges and needs of all expenses in a practice. We are not talking lightly on this topic.
Yeah.
The
For
topic is
sure.
extremely necessary. I know it's sensitive, but I'm actually going to talk a little bit about orthoevolution. And this is why I'm so excited for our upcoming event in July. We are going to
Yeah.
be talking about these difficult conversations and how
Mhm.
to address increased overhead and what that means as business
Yep.
owners. And
Yep.
that's why this event, as an exclusive, orthoevolution exclusive, is for only doctors and office managers because we're going to have those hard topics and we're going to give you solutions. It's imperative
Yeah.
that
So agree with you.
doctors and business owners understand this perspective and what it means.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
right, passion comes out.
Yeah, I know, I know. Like I said, you get two consultants talking and you're gonna feel it and you're gonna see it.
Right.
No, I completely agree with you and definitely plug for Ortho Evolution. If you are looking, like I said, you want to find a way to pour into your team,
Yeah.
send them to continuing ed. If you're looking for a way to pour into your office manager, I think even that's even harder sometimes. And you as a doctor, this is the year you want to be going to evolution. So thanks for bringing that up. Michelle, as we wrap up here, I always like to make sure that people know how to find out about you. So what would be the best way and for patients who, or patients, doctors out there who may be like, I think, what Michelle said really makes sense. And I think I would like to have somebody talk to me a little bit or whatnot. How would they do that? How do they find out about you?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jill. So you can reach me directly on our website, which is ortho-consulting.com. You can email me directly at Michelle at ortho-consulting.com as well. But definitely reach out to me. I'd love to have a complimentary assessment Zoom with you, talk about the needs of your practice and what my team and I can do to support that success. So thank you for that opportunity, Jill.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michelle, I don't know. I think you know this because you listen to Hey Docs, but one of the ways I love to finish up my show is to do a speed round with people who've been on it. So, are you ready to accept the speed round challenge?
I'm ready. Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
One more on my side.
That's
All
right.
right. Favorite book?
Leaders eat last.
Oh, I love that one. Such a good one. Favorite outdoor activity?
Oh, anything on the water or golf?
Oh, I don't know that you know this, but I have never really swung a golf club before. And my goal this year is to take a golf class. So
I
maybe someday I'll be able to join you on the golf course.
I would love that. I'm not very good, but the clothes are cute and I love the social aspect of it.
I figure I can at least drive a cart and drink a drink if I can't swing, do anything else. So,
Right, you got it.
all right. And then if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
Humility. I
Oh,
hope to always be humble.
ah, that's great. And then what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Ooh, dance like nobody's watching.
That one. That's such a good one. And sometimes you just have to do that. That's great. Michelle, thank you so much. You just are such an inspiration to our profession and a dear friend of mine. And thank you so much for being on Hey Docs and for giving us your time and your great information today.
Absolutely, Jill. And I just want to take this time for all the work that you and your team behind the scenes to really get Hey Docs out. It's so valuable. And it just is something that I highly respect and I'm grateful for. So thank you. Well done. I celebrate you, but thank you for the opportunity to be on with you.
Thank you. All right. Till next time.
Take care.
See ya.